The morning sunlight spilled across my driveway as if it had been painted there just for me. A gentle breeze carried the smell of fresh-cut grass from a few houses down, and for once, the neighborhood felt peaceful. I couldn't have asked for a better Saturday to host my garage sale. I had spent the past week knee-deep in boxes, closets, and cabinets, sorting through things I hadn't touched in years. Old board games missing pieces, kitchen gadgets I swore I needed but never used, books that had been collecting dust. Everything finally had a place, spread out on folding tables Jenny helped me set up the night before. Jenny, my neighbor and closest friend on the block, was already there, sipping on her iced coffee while fluffing up a stack of shirts. "You really outdid yourself, Alex," she said with a grin. "This looks like one of those Pinterest-perfect garage sales." "Pinterest-perfect?" I laughed, straightening a box of DVDs. "I'll settle for, 'Please take this junk off my hands.'" She snorted and shook her head. "Trust me, people eat this stuff up. Somebody's about to buy that old lamp of yours and call it vintage." By 8:30, the first customers began to trickle in. A young couple with a toddler stopped to admire a rocking chair I had nearly thrown out. Two teenage boys dug through my video game collection like they had found buried treasure. Jenny made small talk with them, teasing them about whether they'd actually use the jump rope they picked up or just let it sit in their closet. The driveway buzzed with chatter and laughter, the exact kind of neighborhood moment I loved. For a little while, it felt like we were all part of a small community instead of just people who happened to live near each other. "See?" Jenny whispered to me, elbowing my side. "Worth the trouble." I nodded, smiling as a man in his 50s handed me a $5 bill for an old toaster. Absolutely worth it. Everything was perfect, until I noticed a figure striding down the sidewalk like a storm cloud rolling in. Karen. Even from a distance, her presence made my chest tighten, sunglasses perched like a crown on her head, arms folded across her chest, lips pursed in disapproval. She looked less like a neighbor and more like a judge arriving to hand down a sentence. Jenny spotted her too. "Oh no," she muttered, lowering her coffee cup. "Looks like the HOA police just clocked in." I sighed. Can we just get through one day without her causing a scene? Karen didn't waste time with greetings. She marched straight up the driveway, her heels clicking against the concrete like a warning bell. The crowd quieted slightly, a ripple of unease moving through the buyers. Even the toddler in the rocking chair seemed to sense the tension, squirming in his mother's arms. Well, Karen said, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "What exactly do you think you're doing?" I forced a polite smile. "Good morning, Karen. It's just a garage sale. Nothing major." Her eyes narrowed. "Nothing major? This is against HOA policy." Jenny nearly choked on her coffee. "Pretty sure it's not," she said under her breath, but Karen ignored her. Karen paced the length of the driveway, eyeing the tables like they were violations waiting to be cited. Balloons tied to the mailbox, tacky, tables blocking the walkway, hazardous. And is that food? She jabbed a finger at a box of unopened granola bars I'd tossed into the mix. "Do you have a permit to sell food?" The young couple exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable. One of the teenagers whispered, "Is she serious?" But Karen shot him a glare that shut him up instantly. I tried to keep my voice calm. "Karen, the HOA allows 2 garage sales a year. This is my first one. Everything's fine." Her laugh was harsh and humorless. "Oh, don't you lecture me on the rules. I've been on the board longer than you've lived here. This is absolutely not allowed." Jenny rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might get stuck. Karen whipped around to face her, bristling. "Excuse me? I don't recall asking for your commentary." Jenny just sipped her coffee, unfazed. "Good thing you didn't, because it was free of charge." Several neighbors stifled chuckles, but Karen didn't notice. She was too busy inspecting a stack of books, frowning as though Shakespeare himself had personally offended her. I stood there, wishing the ground would swallow me whole. This was supposed to be fun, lighthearted, a way to clean out my home and maybe chat with some friendly faces. But with Karen here, the air felt heavy, like the clouds before a thunderstorm. Jenny leaned closer and whispered, "She's winding up. Bet you $5 she threatens to call the HOA president before 9 o'clock. I sighed. You're probably right. And just as if on cue, Karen straightened her back, adjusted her sunglasses, and declared, "If this circus isn't shut down immediately, I'll be calling Mr. Lewis myself. He'll put an end to this nonsense." Her words hung in the air like a challenge. Shoppers exchanged uneasy glances, waiting to see what I'd do. My heart sank. I knew one thing for certain. This perfect Saturday had just taken a very sharp turn. Karen's declaration rang out like a siren. "If this circus isn't shut down immediately, I'll be calling Mr. Lewis myself," she snapped, her voice rising above the low hum of chatter. For a moment, the driveway fell silent. The teenage boys who had been digging through my game collection froze mid-motion. The couple with the toddler slowly stepped back, as though they'd wandered into enemy territory. Even Jenny, who usually found a joke for every occasion, set her coffee cup down and squared her shoulders. I forced myself to stay calm. "Karen, I've read the rules. We're allowed 2 garage sales a year. This is perfectly within the guidelines." But Karen didn't come here to listen. She came to perform. She strutted around the driveway, wagging her finger at random objects like an overzealous detective. "These tables are blocking the sidewalk. Someone could trip and sue. And balloons on the mailbox? Do you think this is a carnival? It looks utterly ridiculous." Jenny folded her arms, her eyebrows shooting up. "Pretty sure nobody ever sued over balloons, Karen." Karen spun to face her, bristling like a cat. "This is no laughing matter. This is about maintaining standards. I won't have this neighborhood looking like a flea market." The irony wasn't lost on me. Half the neighborhood was currently digging through my flea market. A woman holding a stack of cookbooks raised an eyebrow, muttering just loud enough for others to hear. "Seems like everyone but her is fine with it." Karen's head whipped toward the woman. "Excuse me? Did you say something?" The woman gave her a polite smile. "Yes. I said I think this sale is perfectly fine." Karen's face flushed crimson. "Well, I don't. And as a member of the HOA board, I have the right to enforce the rules." Jenny let out a low whistle. "Funny, last I checked, you weren't president. You're just... Karen." The teenage boys snickered. One of them whispered, "She's like the neighborhood boss battle." Karen ignored them. She marched over to the box of granola bars, plucked one out, and held it up like she'd discovered contraband. "Selling food without a permit is illegal. Do you want to poison the neighborhood?" I pinched the bridge of my nose. "Karen, those are sealed store-bought granola bars. I put them out because I didn't want them going stale in my pantry. Nobody's being poisoned." She gasped theatrically. "Oh, so now you admit you're selling food?" Jenny leaned close to me and muttered, "If drama had calories, Karen would have burned through her entire Fitbit goal by now." That earned a few muffled laughs from nearby neighbors, but Karen's glare silenced them quickly. She marched over to a young man flipping through old vinyl records and snatched the album right out of his hands. "Don't encourage this lawlessness." The man stared at her, stunned. I was going to buy that." "Well, you won't," she snapped. "This sale isn't even authorized." That was it. The crowd began shifting uncomfortably, muttering under their breath. One older gentleman shook his head and said, "Karen, let the man buy his record. You're ruining the whole morning." Karen puffed up, her voice climbing an octave higher. "I'm protecting this neighborhood. If I don't step in, who will? What's next? Garage bands playing in the driveway, food trucks, strangers loitering. This is how standards slip." Jenny chuckled. "Pretty sure loitering isn't caused by old toasters and VHS tapes." By now, every eye was on Karen, and not in a good way. Some shoppers were amused, others annoyed, but everyone was united in their disbelief. It was like watching a reality TV meltdown in real time. I took a steadying breath, trying not to lose my cool. "Karen, look, no one's upset but you. If you don't like it, you don't have to shop here. It's that simple." Karen's lips pressed into a thin line. Her voice dropped, sharp and icy. "You think you're clever, don't you? But this won't end here. I'll be filing an official complaint. And when Mr. Lewis hears about this, Jenny interrupted, grinning. Oh, I hope Mr. Lewis hears about this. He could use the entertainment. A ripple of laughter swept through the crowd, and Karen's eyes widened in outrage. She turned beet red, clutching the granola bar in one hand and the vinyl record in the other like trophies of her crusade. The couple with the toddler whispered something to each other and left quietly, clearly unwilling to stick around for the drama. A few others lingered, curious to see how far Karen would push it. Karen raised her chin, voice trembling with fury. This isn't over. You've embarrassed yourself in front of the neighborhood, and when Mr. Lewis arrives, you'll regret this. With that, she stomped off down the driveway, dialing furiously on her phone as her heels clacked against the concrete. Jenny let out a long sigh, shaking her head. Well, that escalated fast. I glanced at the uneasy faces around me. The shoppers who had laughed moments ago now looked hesitant, unsure if they should stay or go. My perfect Saturday had transformed into a spectacle. And as Karen disappeared around the corner, her angry voice echoing into her phone, I knew one thing for certain. This showdown wasn't over. Karen's angry voice carried down the street long after she disappeared around the corner, her phone glued to her ear. The crowd in my driveway shuffled uncomfortably. A few neighbors lingered, clearly invested in the drama, while others murmured about heading home before things escalated. Jenny leaned close, lowering her voice. Told you she'd call Mr. Lewis before 9 o'clock. Pay up. I gave her a tired smile. If I had any cash left, I'd hand it over. Pretty sure Karen scared off half my customers already. Jenny shrugged and sipped her coffee. Don't worry. People love a good show. The moment she comes back with Lewis, this'll turn into front row theater seating. And she wasn't wrong. About 20 minutes later, an SUV pulled into the cul-de-sac and parked at the curb. Out stepped Mr. Lewis, the HOA president himself. A tall man in his early 60s, he carried himself with calm authority, his gray hair neatly combed, his expression one of quiet patience. Unlike Karen, Mr. Lewis didn't need to yell to command respect. People listened to him because he was reasonable, not because he was loud. Karen trailed behind him, marching like a soldier who had finally brought in the reinforcements. She gestured wildly toward my driveway, as though leading him to a crime scene. There, she exclaimed. Do you see it, Mr. Lewis? Absolute chaos. Balloons, tables blocking the sidewalk, strangers swarming our neighborhood. It's disgraceful. I told you this would happen if people didn't follow the rules. All eyes turned to Mr. Lewis. He took his time walking up the driveway, surveying the tables of trinkets and the quiet crowd. He didn't look angry, just mildly curious, as if wondering why he had been called away from his Saturday for this. Finally, his gaze settled on me. Alex, he said in his deep, even voice. Good morning, can you tell me what's going on here? I nodded, pulling out the folded sheet of paper I had tucked into my pocket days ago, just in case. Morning, Mr. Lewis, it's a garage sale. I checked the HOA rules before planning it. The bylaws say residents are allowed 2 garage sales a year without prior approval. This is my first one. Karen let out a dramatic gasp. You see? He admitted it. A garage sale. Jenny muttered. Well, that's kind of the point of the tables, Karen, which earned a few chuckles from the neighbors. Mr. Lewis unfolded the paper and glanced at the highlighted section I'd marked. His brow furrowed slightly as he read. Then he gave me a small nod. You're correct. The bylaws do permit garage sales. Everything seems in order here. Karen's jaw dropped. What? No! You can't just let this go. Look at those balloons. Look at those granola bars. She snatched one up and waved it like evidence in a courtroom. This is a health hazard. Someone could choke. Mr. Lewis raised a calm hand, silencing her. Karen, please. His voice carried more authority in that one word than all of Karen's shouting combined. There is no violation here. Selling sealed food items is not a health hazard. Balloons are not an HOA concern. And as for the tables, they are clearly on Alex's driveway, not blocking the public sidewalk. The neighbors began nodding and murmuring in agreement. One of the teenagers whispered loudly, "Told you it was fine," and his friend laughed. Karen's face turned redder by the second. But, this ruins the neighborhood's image. It makes us look cheap." Jenny stepped forward, smiling sweetly. "Honestly, Karen, the only thing ruining the neighborhood's image right now is you throwing a tantrum in broad daylight." That earned real laughter from the crowd this time, and Karen's head snapped toward Jenny, her mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. Mr. Lewis sighed, adjusting his glasses. "Karen, you've caused enough disruption this morning. Alex is well within the rules, and the neighbors clearly don't mind. In fact," he scanned the crowd, "it seems you're the only one who—" A wave of murmurs rippled through the group. The woman who'd bought the cookbook spoke up again. "She does this every time. Last month she yelled at kids for drawing with chalk on the sidewalk. Before that, it was holiday decorations being too bright." Others chimed in, "She tried to tell me I couldn't plant sunflowers in my yard. She left a note on my car because I parked it facing the wrong way. Don't forget when she measured my grass with a ruler." Karen spun in circles, her arms flailing as accusations piled up. "Lies! All lies! I was protecting our standards." But no one looked convinced. For once, the neighborhood wasn't intimidated. They were fed up. Mr. Lewis turned back to me, his voice steady. "Alex, you're free to continue your garage sale. I apologize for the interruption." Then he fixed Karen with a firm look. "As for you, Karen, we'll be having a conversation about your conduct. This is not how an HOA board member should behave." Karen stood frozen, humiliated, her face a storm of rage and disbelief. For the first time, she was speechless. Jenny grinned and raised her coffee cup in mock salute. "Guess we found today's biggest bargain, Karen's patience, and it's clearly on clearance." The driveway erupted in laughter, applause, even a few whistles. I couldn't help but smile, relief washing over me. The storm had passed, and for once, Karen wasn't the one in control. Karen, however, wasn't finished. With a huff, she dropped the granola bar onto the table, spun on her heel, and stomped back down the driveway. "This isn't over," she muttered. "Not by a long shot." But by the looks on my neighbors' faces, everyone knew it was. The week after the garage sale felt strangely peaceful. Neighbors waved more often, stopped to chat, and even joked about how Karen's free entertainment had been the highlight of the event. Jenny came over almost every evening, perched on my porch with her iced coffee, reliving the drama like it was the finale of a hit TV series. "You should have seen her face when Mr. Lewis shut her down," Jenny said for the 5th time that week, grinning. "I swear, if I'd had popcorn, it would have been the best movie night ever." I laughed, shaking my head. "I'm just glad it's over." But of course, with Karen, nothing was ever over. Rumors spread quickly around the neighborhood. People whispered that Karen had stormed into Mr. Lewis's office after the garage sale, demanding he write me up. Others said she was drafting a petition to ban driveway sales altogether. Whatever the truth was, I knew one thing. She wasn't going down without a fight. 2 weeks later, the monthly HOA meeting rolled around. Normally, I skipped those gatherings. They were long, dry, and filled with debates about landscaping budgets and fence paint colors. But after the garage sale debacle, Jenny convinced me to go. "Front row seats," she said, winking. "You don't want to miss this." The community center was already buzzing when we arrived. Folding chairs lined the room, and nearly every seat was filled. Clearly, word had spread that tonight's meeting would be more entertaining than usual. Karen sat near the front, posture rigid, a thick folder clutched in her lap like a weapon. When she saw me and Jenny walk in, her lips curled into a tight smirk. Mr. Lewis called the meeting to order, his calm voice cutting through the chatter. For the first 30 minutes, things went as expected. Budget updates, landscaping plans, routine maintenance. My mind drifted, but Jenny nudged me when Karen shifted in her chair preparing to pounce. "Here it comes," she whispered. Sure enough, Karen stood abruptly, clutching her folder. Mr. Lewis, fellow board members and residents, she began, her voice loud and theatrical. I must bring to your attention a grave issue that threatens the integrity of our neighborhood. Jenny muttered, "Grave issue equals garage sale. Just watch." Karen flipped open her folder, pulling out printed photos of my driveway from the sale. 2 weeks ago, this homeowner, she pointed at me dramatically, turned his property into a circus. Balloons, food sales, strangers swarming our streets. This kind of behavior cheapens our community and lowers property values. I demand stricter rules to prevent such chaos from happening again. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some people rolled their eyes, others whispered to their neighbors. Mr. Lewis remained calm. Karen, as I explained before, Alex's garage sale was fully within HOA rules. Nothing he did violated policy. Karen's voice rose, shrill with desperation. Rules aren't enough. We must protect our standards. If we allow one person to host a garage sale, what's next? Car washes, bake sales, farmers markets? Jenny raised her hand, her voice cutting through the tension. Honestly, I wouldn't mind a farmer's market. At least then we'd get fresh strawberries instead of lectures. The room erupted in laughter. Karen's face twisted in fury. This is not a joke! But the neighbors weren't laughing with her, they were laughing at her. People began speaking up one after another. She harassed my kids for drawing chalk art. She left a nasty note on my car because I parked on the street overnight. She told me my Christmas lights were too cheerful. One man stood, his voice firm. Karen, you've been nitpicking this neighborhood for years. It's not about rules, it's about control. And we're tired of it. Applause broke out, louder than I'd ever heard at a meeting. Karen's face turned scarlet as she clutched her folder to her chest, sputtering. Mr. Lewis raised his hand, and the room quieted. I've received multiple complaints about your behavior, Karen. Your actions at the garage sale and at other times have disrupted the community. Effective immediately, you are removed from your position on the HOA board. The silence that followed was brief but electric. Then cheers and clapping filled the room. Jenny actually stood up and whooped, grinning ear to ear. Karen froze, stunned, as though someone had pulled the ground out from under her. She tried to speak, but no words came. Finally, with a strangled huff, she gathered her papers, stuffed them into her folder, and stormed out of the room. The door slammed behind her, echoing like the final note of a song. For the first time in years, the neighborhood exhaled. After the meeting, neighbors came up to me, smiling, shaking my hand, telling me they were glad I'd stood my ground. Jenny nudged me as we left the building. See? Best free entertainment in town, and you, my friend, are the star. I chuckled, relief flooding through me. Honestly, I just wanted to sell my old toaster. Jenny smirked. And instead, you toasted Karen's reign. That's what I call a bargain. We walked home under the soft glow of the streetlights, the air lighter than it had been in years. Karen had finally been stripped of her self-appointed power, and the neighborhood no longer lived under her shadow. My garage sale had started as a simple way to declutter. But in the end, it gave the community something much greater, a reason to stand together. And as for Karen, well, she got exactly what she deserved.